Hello, 8th grade math students. This is Mrs. Youd. Today I'm going to teach you about parallel and perpendicular lines. Please have out your spiral notebooks, open up to a nice clean page, and write this at the top of the page. Remember that slope of the line tells you the steepness of the line, so how steep it is, and it also tells you the direction, okay? And remember, the direction is either going to be up, so it's going to be positive, or it's going to be negative, or zero, or undefined. So we have positive, negative, zero, or undefined. Okay? Now, let's think about what happens if we have two lines that are headed in the exact same direction. So then these two lines would be parallel, right? And remember from when we did parallel lines in an earlier chapter, if you saw two little arrows, one on each, then that meant that the lines were parallel. So if you think about it, these two parallel lines have the same steepness and they are also going in the same direction. So that means that if you have two lines that have the exact same slope, then those two lines will be parallel. Now they have to be exactly the same. If you had, for example, 1/2 and -1/2, those two would not be parallel because the 1/2 is heading in the positive direction and the -1/2 is heading in a negative direction. They have to be exactly the same. So 1/2 and also another one that has 1/2, those would be parallel. Okay, let's now talk about perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines have a slopes, when you take the slopes and you multiply them together, that's what product means. So we're going to multiply the slopes together, and when you multiply the slopes together, they would multiply to -1. So for example, let's say I had one line with a slope of 3/4 and another line with a slope of -4/3. If I take those two slopes, 3/4, and multiply it with the other slope, -4/3, what we're going to get when we multiply the top together is 3 multiplied by -4 over 4 multiplied by 3, and that's going to give me -12 over +12. That does equal -1. So that means that these two lines would be perpendicular. Let's try another example. This time I have 3/4 and -3/4. So if I multiply those two together, 3/4 multiplied by -3/4, well, 3 times -3 is -9, and 4 times 4 is 16. This is not equal to -1. Therefore, these two lines are not perpendicular. Another way to think about this is that if you look at 3/4 and -4/3, notice that one of them's positive and the other one's negative. Also notice that the 3 that was on the top now goes on the bottom, and the 4 that was on the bottom goes on the top. When you flip a fraction like that, it's called the reciprocal. And when we have opposite signs, we have a positive sign and a negative sign, it's the opposite reciprocal. So another way to think about this is that if you have two slopes that are opposite reciprocals, then the lines will be perpendicular. Please turn in your journals to page 77. On problems 1 and 2, we need to decide which lines are parallel and explain how we know. So you'll notice on number 1, there are 3 lines. This first line is called line B, and then we have line R, and then we have line G. So it looks to be that line B and line G are parallel because those look like they are parallel. But in order to find out for sure, we need to find the slopes. So we're going to find the slope of line B and the slope of line R and the slope of line G. Okay, so the slope of line B, We can either use the slope formula, or since this is on a graph, we can count. So if I make my triangle, I can count up and over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up, and 1, 2, 3 over. This is a positive slope, so it's going to be up 5 and over 3 positive. Now let's do the next one. On line R, we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then over 1, 2. So this is a slope of 5 over 2. And lastly, if we have line G, I'm going to make my triangle, and we're going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to go over 1, 2, 3, and so we have a slope of positive 5 over 3. So as you can see, line B and line G have the exact same slope. So our answer is line B is parallel to line G because they both have the same slope of 5 over 3. Remember that this is a different way to say parallel. This symbol here means parallel. Let's take a look at number 2. For number 2, we still have 3 lines, line B, line R, and line G. So we're going to need to find the slopes of each one. I would like for you to finish number 2. Find the slope of B by drawing your triangle, and find the slope of R by drawing your triangle, find the slope of G by drawing your triangle, and see if you can figure out which of the lines are parallel. For number 2, I got that B and R both had a slope of 9 over 1, while G had a slope of 10 over 1. Therefore, B is parallel to R because they both had the same slope of 9 over 1, which by the way is the same as 9. Let's take a look at number 3. We have y equals 2 and y equals negative 4. So if we thought about this and made a real quick sketch of these two lines, we would get that y equals 2 would be up 2 on the y-axis. It would be a horizontal line, which means it has a slope of 0. And then if we graphed y equals negative 4, it would be down 4 on the y-axis, and it would also have a horizontal line with a slope of 0. Since they both have the exact same slope, they're both 0, then we can say that the lines are parallel because they both have the same slope of 0. Therefore, I'm going to go ahead and make another quick sketch of these two lines here. So for x equals 3, this, remember, crosses the x-axis at 3. This time it's going to be an undefined slope. Y equals negative 3 is going to cross the y-axis at negative 3, and it has a slope of 0. These two lines are not parallel because they have different slopes. They are indeed, instead, they are perpendicular. For this video, I'm going to skip number 5. Let's move on to the next page. On numbers 6 and 7, we need to this time decide if they are perpendicular, and how do you know? So remember, perpendicular lines have slopes that have a product of negative 1. This means if we multiply the two slopes together, we will get negative 1 as an answer. So let's see if we can find the slope of R. So we have our 2 points here that we need to make a triangle with. I notice that I'm going up 1, 2, 3 and over 1, 2, 3. It's also heading in the negative direction, so I would write negative 3 over 3, which equals negative 1. Now let's find the slope of B. B has these 2 points here and here. So if I draw my triangle, I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's heading in the positive direction this time. So positive 6 over 6 equals positive 1. The slope of G has these 2 points here and here. So I'm going to count up and over, and I count up 1 and over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So up 1 and over 7 in the positive direction. If we took the two slopes of -1 and +1 and multiplied them together, so -1 multiplied by +1 equals -1. So that means that the product of the slopes of those two lines are -1. So that means our answer is going to be that R is perpendicular to B because the product of the slopes is -1. Remember that this symbol here is a symbol that means perpendicular. So you can use this symbol if you want to instead of writing it all out. Let's take a look at number 7. We need to find the slope of R and the slope of B and the slope of G. Why don't you go ahead and try and find these three slopes and see if you can figure out which ones have a product of the slopes equaling -1. For number 7, I got that the slope of R was 4 over 1 and G was -1 over 4. And when I multiplied those two together, I got -1. So therefore, R is perpendicular to G because the product of the slopes is -1. Let's take a look at number 8. I'm going to go ahead and graph number 8. So on number 8, we have x is equal to 0. That means that it crosses the x-axis at 0, and it's actually the same as the y-axis. This has a slope that is undefined. Let's go ahead and sketch y equals 3. So this crosses the y-axis at +3, and it's going to have a slope of 0. Since these slopes, as you can see, they are definitely perpendicular. Anytime you have a 0 slope and an undefined slope, even though you can't multiply those together, you can see that they are definitely perpendicular. So my answer is that the lines are perpendicular because one of the lines is horizontal while the other one is vertical. Let's go ahead and graph or do a real quick sketch of a graph for number 9. So for number 9, I have y is equal to 2. So if I count up 2, I'm going to cross the y-axis at 2, and I'm going to be horizontal. This is going to be a slope of 0. The other line is y equals -1/2. So if I count down, I need to go to halfway between 0 and -1, and it's also going to be a horizontal line, which means it is also 0. So therefore, these lines are not perpendicular because they have the same slope. So that means that instead they are parallel. We are going to skip number 10 for this video, so that's it. Thanks for watching.